Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dandavat pranams to all the assembled Vaishnavas. So we are having our Saturday study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in Canto 7. We've reached chapter 4. And the chapter was titled Hiranyakashipu Terrorizing the Universe, if I remember correctly. So Hiranyakashipu, after all of his austerities, he has achieved the ultimate position of control and enjoyment, power and enjoyment, which anyone who appreciates materialistic values, they would be envious of such an attainment that was achieved by Hiranyakashipu. So he's sitting on top of the world. He's kicked the devas, right? He's kicked the devas out of their heavenly abode, known as Svarga Loka. He's on the throne of King Indra, who's the king of heaven. He has all the gods, all the devas bowing to him. Welcome, Nazar and Gandalila. Welcome, everyone. Kirtida. So he is in this position of ultimate power and enjoyment. Even Narada, right? Narada is the person who is narrating this history. Even Narada is narrating this history, right, to King Yudhishthir Maharaj. And he himself, he relates. He was also a part of this assembly who had to kowtow to King Hiranyakashipu. So we ended on this verse 14. I'll just read the translation again. O Maharaj Yudhishthir. So Narada is relating to Yudhishthir. Just get this screen out the way. O Maharaj Yudhishthir, descendant of Pandu, by dint of his personal power, Hiranyakashipu, being situated on the throne of King Indra, controlled the inhabitants of all the other planets. The two Gandharvas, Vishvavasu and Tumburu, I myself, and the Vidyadharas, Apsaras, and sages all offered prayers to him again and again, just to glorify him. And so these are all different higher races. We know the Gandharvas, these are heavenly beings, the Apsaras, sages, and I presume the others as well, all higher beings of the heavenly planets. Okay, so we're picking up at verse 15 today. Saeva varna shami bi kratubir buddhi nai Nijamano havir bagan agrahitsena tejasa. Being worshipped by sacrifices offered with great gifts by those who strictly followed the principles of Varna and Ashram, Hiranyakashipu, instead of offering shares of the oblations to the demigods, accepted them himself. So this is the system of the Vedic culture, right? And this is highlighted in the Govardhan Leela, which I believe we were discussing yesterday, right? This is the idea of the behind how the whole Govardhan Leela began, is because there's this tradition, right? That you make offerings, you offer sacrifices to the devas who are providing us with all the bounty of this world, right? This is the idea. It's a way of living in harmony with the environment. So Indra, right? He's the god of rain, and he's managing the weather, and the residents of Vrindavan, they need the rain to nourish the grass, which feeds the cows who produce milk, which is their livelihood, right? And so by giving honor and actually making offerings that help sustain the life of Indra, Indra is pleased, and he continues, and nourished also, and he continues with his duty of providing the world with rain and so on. So it's a way of living in harmony with the environment, a way of living in recognition of the fact that we are not independent beings. We actually need the support of others so that we can continue with our lives in this world. So this is the tradition, right? The persons will make these sacrifices for the devas, and the devas are receiving some benefit from that. But Hiranyakashipu is hijacking the whole operation. He's embezzling in a sense, taking what is meant for them for himself. So naturally, this is going to create a huge disruption in the order of the earthly plane. So moving on to verse 16. Akishtapachya tasya sid saptadi pavati mahi tataka madugagavo nanashtarya padam nabaha. As if in fear of Hiranyakashipu, the planet Earth, which consists of 7 islands, delivered food grains without being plowed. Thus it resembled cows like the Surabi of the spiritual world or the Kamaduga of heaven. The earth yielded sufficient food grains, the cows supplied abundant milk, and outer space was beautifully decorated with wonderful phenomena. Well, that's interesting. That's not the result I was expecting. But it sounds like all of this bounty is being manifest because of fear. So that's an interesting plot twist. The Earth planet is afraid of the wrath of Hiranyakashipu, so is just freely giving grains without even being plowed. Interesting. We'll see where this is going. Ratnakaras charatnogams tatpatnyaschohurmibihi shadasidu gitakshodra dadikshiram. Difficult one. By the flowing of their waves, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, the rivers, which are compared to their wives, supplied various kinds of gems and jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, which is ghee, milk, yogurt, and sweet water. An ocean of sugarcane juice. I haven't heard of that one before. How extraordinary. Purport: the water of the seas and oceans of this planet, of which we have experience, are salty. But other planets within the universe contain oceans of sugarcane juice, liquor, ghee, milk, and sweet water. Liquor also. My goodness. The rivers are figuratively described as wives of the oceans and seas because they glide down to the oceans and seas as tributaries, like the wives attached to their husbands. Modern scientists attempt excursions to other planets. We're definitely seeing that today, but they have no information of how many different types of oceans and seas there are within the universe. According to their experience, the moon is full of dust, but this does not explain how it gives us soothing rays from a distance of millions of miles. As far as we are concerned, we follow the authority of Vyasadeva and Shukadev Goswami, who have described the universal situation according to the Vedic literature. These authorities differ from modern scientists, who conclude from their imperfect sensual experience that only this planet is inhabited by living beings, whereas the other planets are all vacant or full of dust. Taila Doni Birapidam Sarvatushu Gunandrumaha Dadara Loka Palanam Eka Eva Pritagunan. The valleys between the mountains became fields of pleasure for Hiranyakashipu, by whose influence all the trees and plants produced fruits and flowers profusely in all seasons. The qualities of pouring water, drying, and burning, which are all qualities of the 3 departmental heads of the universe, namely Indra, Vayu, and Agni, were all directed by Hiranyakashipu alone without assistance from the demigods. Wow. So he's actually carrying out all the duties of the devas, it sounds like, because of the power that he received from Lord Brahma. Purport, it is said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tejo Vadi Mridam Yata Vinimaya. This material world is conducted by fire, water, and earth, which combine and take shape. Here it is mentioned that the three modes of nature, Pritagunan, act under the direction of different demigods. For example, King Indra is in charge of pouring water. The demigod Vayu controls the air and dries up the water, whereas the demigod controlling fire burns everything. Hiranyakashipu, however, by dint of his austere performance of mystic yoga, became so powerful that he alone took charge of everything without assistance from the demigods. Wow. Saitam nudita kakub ekara vishayan priyan yato pajosham bunjano nachipyada jitanjiyaha. In spite of achieving the power to control in all directions, and in spite of enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling his senses, he remained their servant. Ajita Indriya. Very interesting point, huh? Ajitendriya, right? Because Jita is referring to conquering, and Ajita, you cannot conquer, you cannot control. Indriya is the senses. That's a very interesting point. And that reminds us, right, of this one expression of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, where he phrased this situation with in these words, to become, how was it exactly that he said it? To become a slave of the senses, right? Well, that's right. He was discussing this point. What does it mean to have freedom, right? Freedom of the senses or freedom from the senses, right? And there's generally a fight in this world to have freedom of the senses. But if you think about it, that's actually a type of slavery, right? And this is what Hiranyakashipu is experiencing here, right? That although he literally has everything to the point where the most powerful beings in existence, they're all at his feet, they're submissive to him. He has all the power that they have, right? He's literally carrying out the duties of the devas. That's how powerful he's become. But he's still not satisfied. Why? Because his senses are uncontrolled. And so this is the nature of the senses, that they're never satisfied. So real satisfaction only comes when you can control your senses. Right? So freedom from the senses, that is a far superior type of power than freedom of the senses. And so this is what Hiranyakashipu is discovering the hard way. Very interesting. Purport, this is an example of a Sauric life. Atheists can advance materially and create an extremely comfortable situation for the senses. But because they are controlled by the senses, they cannot be satisfied. This is the effect of modern civilization. Materialists are very much advanced in enjoying money and women, yet dissatisfaction prevails within human society, because human society cannot be happy and peaceful without Krishna consciousness. As far as material sense gratification is concerned, materialists may go on increasing their enjoyment as far as they can imagine, But because people in such a material condition are servants of their senses, they cannot be satisfied. Hiranyakashipu was a vivid example of this dissatisfied state of humanity. Evam Maishvarya Matasa, Evam Maishvarya Matasya, Chittasyo Chastravartinaha, Kalo Mahan Vyatiyaya, Brahma Shapa Mudeyishaha. Hiranyakashipu thus passed a long time being very much proud of his opulences and transgressing the laws and regulations mentioned in the authoritative Shastras. He was therefore subjected to a curse by the 4 Kumaras, who were great Brahmins. So we were mentioning this earlier, right? How, the Lord has given us free will, and he allows us to explore that and express that how we want. And even if it's going against the laws of nature, even if it's causing disturbance, he's still giving us some space to act up in a sense, right? And he'll allow it to go on for some time, right? But because it is acting in disharmony with the environment and natural order, then there has to be a cap on it at a certain point, right? It has to end at a certain point. But he still gives some time for that expression. Right? And so Hiranyakashipu, right, he spends this amount of time acting as he pleases, but because, as Prabhupada says here, is transgressing the laws of the scripture, laws of nature, then he's inviting disharmony upon himself. He's inviting a negative reaction upon himself. Purport: there have been many instances in which demons, after achieving material opulences, have become extremely proud, so much so that they have transgressed the laws and regulations given in the authoritative Shastras. Hiranyakashipu acted in this way. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, he who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. The word Shastra refers to that which controls our activities. Interesting. We cannot violate or transgress the laws and regulative principles mentioned in the Shastras. Bhagavad Gita repeatedly confirms this. One should understand, this is 1624 Bhagavad Gita, one should understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. One should act according to the direction of the Shastra. But the material energy is so powerful that as soon as one becomes materially opulent, he begins to transgress the Shastric laws. As soon as one transgresses the laws of Shastra, he immediately enters upon the path of destruction. So we've been given this free will, right? But at the same time, for our own benefit, there's a regulating there's a system of regulation as well, which is supposed to keep us in check. It's like a type of safety mechanism, right? So this is the Shastra. In a sense, you can say the Shastra is a type of safety mechanism, which, as Prabhupada is saying here, is controlling our activity. Regulating is perhaps a more gentle way of saying it. Regulating our activity for our own benefit, right? So that we don't step too far outside of the bounds of what's in harmony with the natural order of things. Because if we go too far beyond those bounds, then we're inviting negative reactions upon ourselves, right? There is a system, there is an order. And while we're not being forced to, fully surrender, right? There still, we need to act within reason, right? And not act so far out of reason
that we cause extreme disturbance and invite destruction upon ourselves, right? And so the Shastra, the scripture, is like this regulating entity, which is there for our own benefit, right? Of course, this is a lower level of instruction, right? Because once you get to a higher level of realization, you don't need to be told all those things, right? Once you've learned, just to be a decent human being, then you can enter into a finer discussion. And actually, it all becomes about love, right? So what in the beginning may be duty, in the end is love, right? So this is for those who aren't, this type of instruction and regulation is for those who are at a lower level of consciousness. Don't kill people, don't steal, don't be overly selfish, right? These kinds of basic things are there, or be respectful also. Our Gurudev made a very interesting comment in this regard, that he said something like 90% of the Vedic rulings are to promote respect, are to promote a mood of respect. Just to be respectful, right? To higher beings, to God, to other people, to nature, right? That's like a healthy beginning, just to be respectful. And that helps protect us and protect others from negative consequences. We're moving in a more sensitive way through the environment, creating minimal disturbance and inviting minimal reaction. So that mood of respect is very helpful. But ultimately, the idea is that everything will be based on love, right? And ultimately, our real focus is our loving connection with the Lord. And everything will follow behind that. All goodness will follow behind that. All proper behavior and knowledge and so on, it will follow behind love of God, right? Through that central point of being awakened to our loving connection with God, with the center, everything else will come, right? But when we don't have that love, then we have duty. Then we simply try to live carefully in a mood of respect. And so a lot of the things that we do, right, in our practicing lives, it's just simply out of a mood of respect, that we honor, acknowledge, and respect the fact that there is a higher view of things. And we're honoring that. We don't exactly feel it ourselves. Like today, we're following a Ekadashi, and in this side of the world, it's a Ekadashi. And I mean, I'm honoring it and following it because it meant something to my guru, and it's stated in the scripture. And so I'm honoring that with some faith. And there's also some affection, but it's affection for my guru. I can't say that the principle of Ekadashi is so important to me, but I know it was important to my guru. Mahaprabhu requests his mother on his knees, please follow Ekadashi. So I know it's important to Mahaprabhu. So I'm honoring what's important to those with higher vision, but I can't say I have that vision myself, right? So many things that we do, right? We are, when I chant my japa, I'm not always feeling it. I'm not crying tears of ecstasy, taking the holy name of Krishna. I'm not going to pretend that that's where I am. But I'm honoring it because my guru told me this is good for me. And I'm honoring that. And sometimes I may get some touch of some higher feeling, some glimpse, some shadow of that. That gives me some encouragement. But I can't say that's my guiding inspiration in all of this. Whatever I have felt is something very vague and rare, right? But I believe in my guru, and I have love for my guru, and I believe in the scriptures. So I'm following, I'm respecting, I'm honoring, right? So a lot at our level, this mood of respect is actually very helpful, and it's mostly the best that we can have at this stage, right? But ultimately, the goal is that we will awaken into love. This will become our own treasure. It is our own treasure, but it's covered, right? So from respect, we can move to love. We can get a promotion to love, right? But in the meantime, we are being careful and we are following the advices of sadhu and shastra. And that doesn't mean, right, that we're just meant to be blind followers. We can also understand the theory, right? It's not like we just have to be like, just do it because it's good for you. You know, our gurus and the scriptures, they also give us clear explanations. And we can appreciate the theory, right? But we can't pretend that we're feeling it, right? Or that we have that vision, those eyes. But we can appreciate the theory and we respect the principle and we're following in that mood, right? With some faith. That is one expression of faith, actually, that even if we're not seeing it and feeling it at our present stage of consciousness, we're still following it, right? So Hiranyakashipu, blinded by his ahankar, blinded by his false ego, he's and you know, with so much power, it'd be easy to do so. So much power at his disposal, he's blinded, right? And so he's transgressing, the word is used here, the laws of Shastra, the laws of nature, the higher advices. But he ultimately has to face a reaction for that.
तस्योग्रादन्द संविघ्ना सर्वे लोका सपालकः अन्यच्चालब्ध शरणं याय अच्युतम्.
Everyone, including the rulers of the various planets, was extremely distressed because of the severe punishment inflicted upon them by Hiranyakashipu. Fearful and disturbed, unable to find any other shelter, they at last surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. And Srila Prabhupada's quoting this famous verse and favorite verse of Bhagavad Gita. Bhuktaram yagya tapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantam vichati. The sage who knows me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pains of material miseries. So this is a verse that was favorite to Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. He called it the peace formula. Who can embrace the Lord's position as central to everything, as well as the fact that he is friendly to us all. You know, such a person can experience peace. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is actually the best friend of everyone. In a condition of distress or misery, one wants to seek shelter of a well-wishing friend. The well-wishing friend of the perfect order is Lord Shri Krishna. Therefore, all the inhabitants of the various planets, being unable to find any other shelter, were obliged to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Friend. Oh, what a beautiful phrase. The Supreme Friend. This is Krishna. This is Mahaprabhu. This is Shri Guru. If from the very beginning we seek shelter of the Supreme Friend, there will be no cause of danger. It is said that if a dog is swimming in the water and one wants to cross the ocean by catching hold of the dog's tail, certainly he is foolish. Similarly, if in distress one seeks shelter of a demigod, he is foolish, for his efforts will be fruitless. In all circumstances, one should seek shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then there will be no danger under any circumstances. So normally these devas, right, they're considered the supreme beings within the universe. But in this circumstance, you know, their fallible nature, their weakness is being shown. And so they're going to the Lord, they're going to Lord Vishnu to pray for his help. So all very powerful beings, right? But they are also vulnerable.
Tasyai namostu kashtayai yattatma hadishwaraha yadgatva nani vartante shanta shanyasino malaha iti te samyatatmanaha samahita diyo malaha upatastor hishikesham vinidra vayu bhojanaha.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that direction where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated, where those purified souls in the renounced order of life, the great saintly persons, go, and from which, having gone, they never return. Without sleep, fully controlling their minds and living on only their breath, the predominating deities of the various planets began worshiping Rishikesh with this meditation. Very beautiful. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that direction where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated, where those purified souls in the renounced order of life, the great saintly persons, go, and from which, having gone, they never return. Without sleep, fully controlling their minds, and living on only their breath, the predominating deities of the various planets began worshiping Rishikesh with this meditation. How beautiful. So it's an interesting contrast, isn't it? Because previously, Hiranyakashipu, right, he engaged in extreme austerity in order for increasing his own power, right? But now we see the Devas, they're performing similar austerities, but not for the sake, well, not, it is also for themselves, but it is also for the universal good. But the main point is that they are directing their prayer and whatever fruit comes from their austerity towards the Lord. The focus of their austerity is the Lord, right? So it is, they are praying for his grace, right? And that is a very natural, healthy, and wholesome mode of being. And so while Hiranyakashipu's extreme austerities, ultimately led to extreme disturbance and destruction, similar activity carried out by the Devas with a completely different intention is inviting a very auspicious result for everyone. And this is also, you could say, an illustration of the verse Prabhupada cited in his purport, this Bhokta Ram Yagya Tapasam. This verse is saying that Bhokta is referring to the enjoyer, right? So the word Bhoga, right? That's the word we use for food preparations that are going to be offered to the Lord. And prasad is after it's been offered and he's accepted it, we hope. But so it's the same root, bhog literally means what is to be enjoyed. And then here, bhokta, that means the enjoyer. So Krishna is the bhokta of what? Yagya and tapa. He is the real enjoyer of all yagya, all sacrifice, and all tap, all austerity. And if we can learn to direct what sacrifice and what austerities we make, and the thing is, like, we can actually live without making austerities. Getting up in the morning, even many things we're doing in our daily lives, we may not think of as an austerity or as a sacrifice, but they are. Getting up in the morning, taking care of our daily duties, taking care of those dependent on us, carrying out our work. We're automatically doing sacrifices all day long. But if we can try to direct our intention towards the Lord, that we want the Lord to be the recipient of what sacrifice. Why am I waking? Why am I breathing? Why am I eating? Because I want to make myself an offering. right? Why am I going to work? Why am I maintaining my body? Because I want to live in remembrance of my Lord. I want to serve my Lord, to love my Lord. So this is bhakti yoga, this is Vaishnava dharma, to live in this spirit, that everything that we do is an offering. Every sacrifice that we make, it is an offering to him. And so the devas, they are living with that consciousness, especially in this moment because they're in trouble. And that also counts, right? Whatever pushes us to remember the Lord, it's a good thing, right? Even if this is the thing, right? The Lord is so generous, so magnanimous. Even if our original intention is selfish, just the fact that we're remembering him, he will appreciate that. He will give us his grace because of that. And so it may start with some selfish intention, but it will ultimately transform into something higher and more pure. The Lord is very gracious, very magnanimous in that way. Right, in Bhagavatam, there's that beautiful verse, aho bhakiyam sanakalukutam jigam sayapaya apya sadvi lebe gatim dachi uchitam tatonyam kam va dayalam sharanam rajema, kam va dayalam sharanam rajema. What an extraordinary thing it is that this Putana, right, is a horrible witch who came to kill Krishna by smearing poison on her breast, right? She came to kill him with that intention. But how wonderful it is that Krishna, he simply saw, oh, she wants to nurse me. And so he gave her a position as a nursemaid in his eternal Leela. How magnanimous is the Lord, how kind is the Lord, how merciful. Kam va dayalam sharanam vrajema. So to whom else can we take shelter of? Who will we find who is more merciful than Krishna? Okay, we'll look at this purport. The two words tasyai, kashtayai are very significant. Everywhere, in every direction, in every heart, and in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in his features as Brahman and Paramatma. Then what is the purpose of saying tasyai, kashtayai? In what direction? In that direction where Hari is situated. During Hiranyakashipu's time, his influence was everywhere. But he could not force his influence into the places where the Supreme Personality of Godhead had his pastimes. For example, on this earth, there are such places as Vrindavan and Ayodhya, which are called dhams. In the dham, there is no influence from Kali Yuga or any demon. If one takes shelter of such a dham, worship of the Lord becomes very easy, and resultant spiritual advancement quickly takes place. In fact, in India, one may still go to Vrindavan and similar places to achieve the results of spiritual activities quickly. Just want to look again at the Sanskrit here, this kashtayai. Tasyai namostu kashtayai. Right, so kashtayai is referring to direction. Namostu, we're paying tasyai unto that. We are paying our obeisance unto that direction. Yatratma harir ishvaraha, where the Lord is. The Supreme Atma, the Supreme Soul. Okay, go on here.
Tesham avira budvani arupame gani sanadayanti kakuba sadunam abhayankari.
Then there appeared before them a transcendental sound vibration emanating from a personality not visible to material eyes. The voice was as grave as the sound of a cloud, and it was very encouraging, driving away all fear. How beautiful. This was the Lord speaking. Then there appeared before them a transcendental sound vibration emanating from a personality not visible to material eyes. The voice was as grave as the sound of a cloud, and it was very encouraging, driving away all fear. May we invite such divine sounds into our lives. Vyasadeva is really quite a storyteller. He really, his language, is very vivid and compelling, draws us in. Ma Vaishta Vibhuda Shishta Sarvesham Bhajamastu Va Mandarshanam Vibhutanam Sarvashayo Papattaye Yatamitasya Doratmyam Daitaya Pasadasya Yat Tasya Shantim Karishyami Talam Tavat Pratikshata. The voice of the Lord vibrated as follows. O best of learned persons, do not fear. I wish all good fortune to you. Become my devotees by hearing and chanting about me and offering me prayers, for these are certainly meant to award benedictions to all living entities. I know all about the activities of Hiranyakashipu and shall surely stop them very soon. Please wait patiently until that time. Sometimes people are very much eager to see God. In considering the words Maddarshanam, seeing me, which is mentioned in this verse, one should note that in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. In other words, the ability to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to see Him or talk with Him, depends on one's advancement in devotional service, which is called bhakti. In bhakti, there are 9 different activities: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. Because all these devotional activities are absolute, there is no fundamental difference between worshipping the deity in the temple, seeing him and chanting his glories. Indeed, all of these are ways of seeing him, for everything done in devotional service is a means of direct contact with the Lord. The vibration of the Lord's voice appeared in the presence of all the devotees, and although the person vibrating the sound was unseen to them, they were meeting or seeing the Lord because they were offering prayers and because the vibration of the Lord was present. Contrary to the laws of the material world, there is no difference between seeing the Lord, offering prayers, and hearing the transcendental vibration. Pure devotees, therefore, are fully satisfied by glorifying the Lord. Such glorification is called kirtan. Performing kirtan and hearing the vibration of the sound, Hare Krishna, is actually seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. One must realize this position, and then one will be able to understand the absolute nature of the Lord's activities. So the Lord is fully present in whatever way we are connecting with him, right? Through sound, through sight, through touch, or whatever it is, right? Through hearing or through chanting. He is fully present in every aspect of his divine being. And so one is not less or more than the other. So they're connecting now to the the words of the Lord, hearing his divine voice, his divine sound. I see, this is what Prabhupada is pointing out. Interesting, mat darshanam, right? Because normally we think of darshan as seeing, right? But they are having darshan in a through sound, right? They're also directly having experience of the Lord. Also through his teachings, right? Harikatha teachings, the message of the Lord is also said to be non-different with the Lord. Through chanting his name in all of these ways, even taking his prasad. If we're really doing so with the right consciousness, right? And if we're really connected, then that is absolute.
Yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme mai cha vidveshaha savashu vinashyati.
When one is envious of the demigods who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge of the cows, Brahmins, Vaishnavas, and religious principles, and ultimately of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So these persons, they may manifest some power for some time, right, as we were discussing, but there's no real foundation because it is acting in opposition to the real current of reality. And so it will soon be vanquished, the Lord is saying here.
Here vairaya prashantaya swasutaya mahatmane Prahladaya yada juyad dhanishyepi virojitam.
When Hiranyakashipu teases the great devotee Prahlad, his own son, who is peaceful and sober and who has no enemy, I shall kill Hiranyakashipu immediately, despite the benedictions of Brahma. So the Lord's looking into the future, right? Because Prahlad, he's not actually born yet, as far as we are aware. But the Lord is seeing into the future and saying, he's telling them, hang on, hang on. You know, I'm waiting for the right moment. I'm waiting for the right moment. And then I will step in. And ultimately, this is all the Lord's Leela, isn't it? And the Lord wants to illustrate different things in his Leela. And so actually, the main factor of this Leela is Prahlad and his loving relationship with the Lord. And really, the Lord, a major aspect of this Leela is that the Lord wants to highlight the glories of his beloved devotee, right? And so that makes it somewhat necessary, right, for him to be facing this difficult circumstance, right? And through this contrast, right, of light and dark and so on, you know, we are appreciating more the glory of the Lord and his devotees. So the devas, they only have a little slice of the bigger picture, right? They only have their own experience. They don't know what the big plan is. They don't know what the master plan is. And so the Lord's telling them, don't worry, like things are under control. I know what's going on. There is a plan. Just waiting for the right moment and I'll intervene. Don't worry. We can also apply this in our own lives, right? That when we have to go through different circumstances, we may not be able to understand why these things are happening. But if we could see the bigger picture, we would understand. We would understand. We're only ever experiencing a small spectrum, tiny spectrum, minuscule section of the sum total of reality, right? And it is mentioned in that first verse of Bhagavatam, Arto Abhigya Swarat, right? That the Lord, he knows the purpose behind everything, but Swarat, he is also independent, right? He's not bound to explain everything to us, right? And what capacity do we even have to understand? And another thing is that understanding comes in stages, right? So for us to have a clear picture of what our condition is and what we need to go through in order to progress, we don't have the power to comprehend, because we're at a certain level of understanding. If someone's in grade 1, you can't explain to them, what's going on at grade 3. And someone in grade 1 may not even understand the purpose of everything that they're doing until they get to grade 2 or 3. Then, oh, now I get it. It's like, for example, when you're learning the alphabet, like, you could think, what's actually the point of learning A, B, C, D? Like, huh? What's the point of this, Mom? But then when you get to learning how to like write words, and then you get to forming sentences, then you get to writing poetry or essays, then it all makes sense, right? But when you're just learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like, it's like, what's actually the point of this? Just to learn a nice song? So when you're learning the ABCs, you're not really equipped to understand the purpose of them. You're at a certain level of development. But later on, it'll all make sense, right? So in the same way, we're not equipped to fully understand everything, why everything happens to us as it does, right? But years later, it may become more clear. Maybe in another lifetime, it all bears fruit, right? But everything has its purpose, and the Lord is behind ultimately. Directly or indirectly, he is behind everything. Okay, we can read this purport. Of all sinful activities, an offense to a pure devotee or Vaishnava is the most severe. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is so disastrous that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has compared it to a mad elephant that enters a garden and causes great havoc by uprooting many plants and trees. If one is an offender at the lotus feet of a Brahmin or Vaishnava, his offense is uproot all his auspicious activities. One should therefore very carefully guard against committing Vaishnava Parad, or offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Here the Lord clearly says that although Hiranyakashipu had received benedictions from Lord Brahma, these benedictions would be null and void as soon as he committed an offense at the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, his own son. A Vaishnava like Prahlad Maharaj is described herein as near Vaira, having no enemies. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Ajata Shatrava Shanta Sadhava Sadhubhushanaha. A devotee has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. A devotee does not create enmity with anyone. But if someone becomes his enemy, that person will be vanquished by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, despite whatever benedictions he may have received from other sources. Hiranyakashipu was certainly enjoying the fruitful results of his austerities. But here the Lord says that as soon as he committed an offense at the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, he would be ruined. One's longevity, opulence, beauty, education, and whatever else one may possess as a result of pious activities cannot protect one if one commits an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Despite whatever one possesses, if one offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, he will be vanquished. And then the opposite is also true, right? That if we can offer our service or our devotion to a Vaishnava, we will get everything through that. Maybe we'll just, okay, I think we'll just read one more verse and it's a good place to stop. Shri Narada Uvacha
ityukta loka guruna tam pranamya divokashaha nyavartanta gatodvega menyade cha shudam hatam.
The great saint Narada Muni continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master of everyone, thus reassured all the demigods living in the heavenly planets, they offered their respectful obeisances unto him and returned, confident that the demon Hiranyakashipu was now practically dead. Purport: the less intelligent men who are always busy worshipping the demigods should note that when the demigods are harassed by the demons, they approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead for relief. Since the demigods resort to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why should the worshippers of the demigods not approach the Supreme Lord for whatever benefits they desire? Srimad Bhagavatam says, this is a very nice verse. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Whether one is a karmi, jnani, or yogi, if one wants a particular benediction fulfilled, even if it be material, one should approach the Supreme Lord and pray to him, for then it will be fulfilled. There is no need to approach any demigod separately for the fulfillment of any desire. So this is in line with what we were discussing just a little earlier, right? That the Lord is so magnanimous, right? For whatever purpose one has in approaching the Lord, they should simply approach him. And by his grace, what originally may have been some lower intention will be transformed. This is the idea. So even if you are approaching the Lord with material desires, approach him with that, and he will ultimately transform that into something more pure. A very nice poetry. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udadadi. So this is real intelligence, udadadi. Okay, well, just come to the end of our time. Does anyone want to share any thoughts, comments, or questions? So wonderful to go through these teachings and this Leela of the Lord. Okay. And also I did want to announce that we're having our second installment in our new course with Lalita Madhava Prabhu on this coming Monday, going through that text, Paramartha Dharma near Noi. And that'll be, I think it's 6:30 a.m. California time and 2:30 p.m. London time. But we'll confirm that in the group. So that'll be this Monday. So I hope you can all join. I'm excited. All right. Well, thank you all for your good company. Wish you a happy weekend. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. All the assembled devotees, sincere seekers ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Gurudev.